good? Can everyone hear me? Hello? So welcome to what I suppose is the last talk of the Athens Bar Show. Has everyone had a good time so far? Yeah? Excellent. Everyone a little bit drunk from what they've had so far? Yeah? Excellent as well. So first of all, thank you for having me here. It's an absolute honor to be able to present and talk to you about the Havana Grand Prix. My name's Andrew Loudon. I work in a small little bar in London called Satan's Whiskers, which is like a local neighborhood bar, kind of like the ones that you have here, very similar in style to maybe like Baba Rum, which I did a guest shift at last night, if anyone was there. And so what I'm going to talk to you about today is the Havana Grand Prix, Cuba in general, and a little bit about how I approach creating drinks and how I approached creating the drinks for the Havana Grand Prix. So I've got a few slides for you to see. So obviously, it was the 10th Havana Cocktail Grand Prix. And I want to talk to you about a little bit of my experiences out in Cuba. Cuban people are very proud to be Cuban. The brief for the competition was the quest for the next Cuban classic. And that was Cuba has this big history of bars and drinks, and when it was at the height of its kind of like bar culture, they had 12 bartenders a day moving over from America to go and work in these bars in Cuba. They've got such a golden history of bars, such as the Hotel Sevilla, La Floridita, Sloppy Joe's, Bodeguita del Medio, all these bars that have a lot of history and a lot of passion behind them. La Floridita has been open for over 100 years, and how many bars can say that about themselves? So it's quite an amazing place, and Cuban people are obviously quite proud of this as well. They have a lot of different influences over the period of time they've had. The English have been there. They occupied it for just under a year, I think it was. I think it's 10 months. The Spanish have occupied it, obviously, for quite a long time. Americans have been in there and done their thing as well. So, yeah, this is what I'll talk about. So the Havana Grand Prix, cocktails, and modern storytelling within those cocktails as well. So the brief for the competition was the quest for the next Cuban classic. So this is how I interpreted that brief. To be able to replicate the drinks anywhere in the world with fresh, top quality ingredients, and then to show a strong link with Cuban culture and how Cuban people have approached their drinks. So replicability throughout the whole world, fresh ingredients, top quality ingredients as well. And then to be able to tell a story through the drinks that we create for those people. So taking Cuban culture and creating a drink and then telling a story through that drink as well. So these are the kind of things that stood out for me within Cuba. So we have the markets. So a big part of the competition was going into a Cuban market and buying ingredients that you found, locally sourced ingredients that were all fresh. So the Cuban markets were full of, as you walk through them, you get this big aroma of fresh fruit. There's great tomatoes are amazing. The pineapples are incredible. The limes, all those aromas. We went to a spice market, which played a big influence in one of my drinks. And the cloves were a big part of that. As soon as you walked into the spice market, you got this huge aroma of smells and all sorts of things like that. Cuban music, as I said as well, in every bar that you go to, there's a band that come on and they play for free, and they're there just to entertain you, and everyone is just so happy to be there as well. All the musicians are there to play you music and to enjoy it, and it works alongside the drinks very well. You can't not enjoy having a mojito in Bodeguita del Medio and listening to music. You can't not enjoy that. That's impossible. Same with La Floridita. You can't have a daiquiri in there and not enjoy the music being played to you as well. The other part of Havana that really stood out for me was this part. This is the Malecon, which runs for 8 kilometers all along the coast, all along the seafront of Havana. And that's kind of like a meeting point for all of Cubans. Cuban people will sit out there at night. They'll drink a bottle of rum. They'll drink beers. They'll drink all sorts. They'll be fishing at night along the Malecon. And you get this big aroma of the sea crashing against this wall. This wall, it crashes against the wall, and you get this like sea breeze that comes in, and you get the saltiness and the qualities from that. And that's where Cuban people will sit and enjoy, and that's where myself and a lot of other people, we went at night to sit amongst the Cuban people. People would come by and play music. We'd drink a bottle of rum, maybe two, depends on how we were feeling. We'd drink beers, and people would come and play music to us, and it was a meeting point. It was a gathering point for people, so it was an incredible experience to be out there. The other thing that stood out is the picture on your far right here, which was Cuban art. And I had the opportunity, luckily, for myself to go around a Cuban art museum. And a lot of the artwork over there played into how I presented my drinks. And it's kind of like that 60s, kind of 70s pop art kind of culture that was prevalent in London at the time anyway. And it's all about bright colors and interactivity. Every part of Cuba is interactive. It's multifaceted. And there's different things that you can pull out and you can pick into creating drinks. So you've got, as I was saying, it was the quest for the next Cuban classic. So the first part of that is they were all very simple drinks. They don't really contain more than 4 or 5 ingredients, and they're all fresh, and they're all top quality. So drinks such as the daiquiri, such a huge golden history about it, created in Santiago de Cuba. And it's just 3 ingredients. And for me, it's one of the best drinks in the world. So it's just rum, lime, and sugar. Incredible drink. Mary Pickford, again, no more than 4 ingredients, 5 ingredients. Maraschino, grenadine, pineapple juice, and rum. A dash of lemon juice, maybe, if you're in the mood. Mojitos. And mojitos get a bad press in England. I don't know what it's like in Greece, but people don't like to order mojitos anymore because they think it's a little bit boring. There's nothing boring about mojito. It's a great drink. And I love making them and drinking them. So, as well, like I was saying, I interpreted the brief as being staying inherently Cuban, so using those ingredients that were available in Cuba and being able to replicate those drinks anywhere else in the world. The music, the art, the history, all of these things in Cuba are interactive. They're all there to be touched and felt. The paintings over there, it's very textured, like multifaceted and multi-layered, and you can see all that's in them. The Malecon running the coast, the smells and the aromas running through the markets, and the history of the bars, the bartenders, as I've already spoken about. You've got famous people such as Willie Schmidt, Constantine Ribiagata, who worked at the La Floridita, who's responsible for many, many drinks. So there's a rich golden history there. And obviously their customers as well. Everyone knows Hemingway and the Hemingway daiquiri, etc. So this is kind of like a traditional way of storytelling through drinks. So it's very linear. So this is kind of like a graph that they'll use within a film. This is how I look at it. So you've got the exposition, which is just the start of the film and what's happening, kind of like the brief, almost rising action, the climax of the film, the falling action, and then the resolution to it. So it's very linear from start to finish. It has a very direct way of going up and then falling back down. So how I interpret that kind of graph into myself creating drinks is kind of like this. So each part is very, very different. And this is how people will take storytelling through comics, for instance. This is a classic comic book style of telling a story. TV series don't have that linear structure to it. They don't go up and then go down. They have multifaceted. Like if you think of this as a character, so you have maybe one character who's part of the role, and then another character, and then the main character. All of these bits have little parts that you can know about, and they have a little bit of history that you can kind of like delve into, and then they fall back down as it comes to an end of the series. So how do you put that into drinks? For instance, the La Pina de Plata, which we've got, that's going to be coming around for you to try in a little while. This was the semi-final drink that I did. So we'll start off here. There's a little bit of fun. So putting that into practice, the name of the drink, La Pina de Plata, or the silver pineapple, when La Floridita first opened over 100 years ago, like I said, its name was La Pina de Plata. And it was just a bodega, and they served kind of like market produce and things like that. Here you have La Pina de Plata coming around for you. And so there's the name. That's one part of it. The next part, the sweet part, we can talk about sugars all day. We can talk about these different things that go into a cocktail. So sweet part, sugars, we can say what's the best kind of sugar syrup to use for the drink. Is it 2-to-1? Is it 1-to-1? Do you use caster sugar? Do you use granulated sugar? We can talk about that for so long to someone. and for a customer. The sour part. So sweet and sour, there should probably another little bit here for pineapple juice because it's both sweet and sour, but we can talk about limes for days on end, and we can bore people all we want about the sour part of drinks. The main spirit, Havana 3, we can delve into that. We can say the history of Havana 3. We can say how Cuban bartenders really like to use that as their cocktail rum, their cocktail ingredients, such as for the daiquiri and things like that. Amplifier number 1. So we've got Sauvignon Blanc, which would be the amplifier number 1. So when I was creating La Pina de Plata, I wanted to use Cuban wine in the drink. So when I asked people about Cuban wine, everyone said, I think someone wants another one over here. So as a question. So as I was talking to people about Cuban wine, everyone told me that it was awful and that I shouldn't use it in a drink. Cubans have this thing of reusing everything that's available to them. So they reuse the old cars that they have. They reuse them still. They're still cars from the 50s. So it kind of, and Havana 3, when it's in the production line, it has this part of it where it's called vino de caña, or wine of the sugar. So I wanted to use that as part of a storytelling aspect of it. So yes, it might not be the greatest wine in the world, but it might be something that works alongside Havana 3. We all know drinks such as the airmail. If you make that with Havana 3, it works with those kind of like dry notes from the champagne. It worked with the wine. Luckily, the wine that I found had those dry notes that fitted alongside Havana 3 quite well. Amplifier number 2 would be your pineapple juice then. And then to serve, I wanted to do something a little bit special when I served it, but I didn't want to overcomplicate the drink. I wanted everything to be concentrated on the drink. So, as I was saying, I went around this Cuban art museum. Every picture that I came across had palm trees blowing into one direction. So I used a mint sprig to replicate that within a drink, and I explained it to the judges how it was leaning to one side because that was the wind that was flowing through Havana. And that was why I wanted to serve it like that. I also found, as I was saying, with the name of the drink, La Pina de Plata, I took a coaster from La Floridita, and I went to a Cuban print shop. And on that, I got them to rub off La Floridita. I got them to print on La Pina de Plata, the first name for La Floridita, and then served it on the drink. As I was saying again about Cuban art, it was multifaceted. So I wrote the ingredients for the drink on the back of the coaster so that when it was served, they had the drink, La Pina de Plata, wrote on it, and then they flipped it over, and it had all the ingredients. So it kind of like that link into interactivity. So the next one, the Jose Marti Especial. We've got a few of those coming around for you again, no doubt. Cool. So this one had a little bit more to it, a little bit more structure. So the name, if we start over here again, Jose Marti is a very famous figure within Cuban history. He's considered to be the national hero of Cuba. And especial is obviously special in Spanish. And that was what they called a lot of their drinks back then, the Marigato Especial, being one of the Cuban bartenders that were out there at the time. He created this drink called the Marigato Especial. So I wanted to put that into there as well. Jose Marti is the name of the airport that you land at in Cuba as well. So it was my first experience of Cuba, put into the name of the drink. The style of the drink, there's another little facet of it here. The style of the drink is based on a daiquiri, which is known as the star of the island. So it's kind of national hero meets star of the island to create a drink for Cuban people to celebrate. The sweet and sour combination, again, is that of a classic daiquiri. So it's 20 mils of 1-to-1 sugar syrup, 20 mils of fresh lime juice. The spirit, again, Havana 3. I used Havana 3 in both drinks, which might have been a little bit risky. But I wanted to do that because I'd been told by the historians out there that Havana 3 was their go-to rum for creating Cuban cocktails. So why not it be the one for the next Cuban classic? Amplifier number 1. Was Manzanilla sherry, or Fino sherry that I used at the time, but the cocktail's evolved a little bit since then, and I put Manzanilla sherry in there. So sherry has this kind of saline quality to it, it's kind of saltiness, and that reminded me of being out on the Malecon and drinking on the Malecon and having that sea air kind of like breeze in and breathe in all that saltiness. So that was there to represent the Malecon to me. Amplifier number 2 was pastis. So as I was saying back here, the style of the drink is like a Cuban daiquiri. I wanted to use pastis in there because where the daiquiri was created in Santiago de Cuba, that was called the Orient of the island back in the days when Cuba was one of the richest islands for its size. It was known as the Orient of the island. That got me thinking, this is a very tenuous link, by the way, but the Orient got me thinking of things like opium and Japan and things like that. You can't really use opium in a drink unless you're mental, which I'm not, so I didn't. But opium and its hallucinogenic qualities got me thinking about absinthe, its hallucinogenic qualities, and then back to pastis, which is very similar, that kind of warming feeling, aniseedy. So I used that in there. Amplifier number 3 is the cloves, as I was talking to you about before. When I went into these spice markets, there was a rich kind of smell of cloves and of spices, and they use it in their food. They use it in this drink as well. So I wanted to put those in there. And then finally, the serve again was served on a Cuban car, a piece of art of a Cuban car, and it was textured again. And then on the back of it, again, it had its recipe wrote down. What does everyone think of the drinks? You like them? How's the Jose Marti? It's good? Cool. So that is pretty much all I've got to talk about, guys. Does anyone have any questions about the Grand Prix or about the graphs at all? Nope? We're all good? Sorry? Easy audience, yeah. Well, I hope you've enjoyed listening to me, guys. Sorry if it's been a little bit brief, but I'll let you go out and party in Athens tonight, and I'll see you all out around there.